So under the plant kingdom, you have the plants which do not have differentiated plant body called Halophyta, and the plants which have differentiated plant body, so without vascular tissue, are considered as Bryophytes, and with vascular tissues are again classified into plants which do not produce seeds and plants which produce seeds. Plants which produce seeds are called Sterdophytes, whereas plants which produce seeds are again classified into Gymnosperms and Angiosperms. So Angiosperms are again classified into dicots and monocots. We learned that how organisms are kept under different groups. So scientists classified the living organisms into 5 kingdoms. So we learned the first 3 kingdoms in a brief manner, namely Kingdom Monera, Kingdom Protista and Kingdom Mycota. So how we classified all these living organisms? You learned that these organisms are kept under different groups based on the similarities present in them as well as differences. Suppose in plant kingdom, you have the plants like lemon, orange and sweet lemon. Though they are different, so they belong to the same family. And you come to the animals, you have the animals like cat, tiger, cheetah. So although these 3 animals are different, so they are kept under a single group. When you come to plants again, you have plants like wheat, jowar, ragi. So their leaves look similar to grass, and the leaves also look similar when you see a bamboo tree. So all these are kept under a single group. So like that, based on the similarities, so organisms have been kept under 5 different kingdoms. So let us learn one of the important kingdoms, so that is about the plants. So how these plants are classified? See, plants are classified majorly into 5 different groups. You can see here, first one Halophyta, second one Bryophyta. Halophytes come under the group Halophyta, Bryophytes come under the group Bryophyte. Bryophyta, then Sterdophyta, then here you have Gymnosperms and Angiosperms. So let us learn in detail how these 5 different groups of plants have been classified. See these plants, so when they were born first time on the earth, so how they looked? So they were growing on the water. So they took the help of the water media. And which were the first organisms to see under this plant kingdom is those were Halophyta. See, Halophyta are the organisms which are also called another name algae. So these plants, when they were born on the earth for the first time, they were considered as Halophyta. So these plants, they do not have any differentiated plant body. So they had certain differentiated plant body. See, you have the similarities or differences like this. See, all the plants which were not having a differentiated plant body were kept under the group Halophyta. See, you can see as we go on learning from first one to second one, third, fourth, fifth, so you will be noticing some of the improvements in the characteristics of those plants. See, when you see the computers around you, so the first formed computers were the big sized, and later, so whatever you see nowadays, computers and cell phones, they are all small size and have efficient working. Like that, so the plants which were first formed were not so efficient, means so they were considered as plants as they were preparing the food. See, algae are green colored, they grow up in the plant medium, in the water medium, and they show the property of photosynthesis. See, thalo means flat. So having the flat body, so the algae were kept under the first group. So here do not vascular tissues. So those vascular tissues were present in certain plants. So those plants without the vascular tissues are considered as bryophytes. So vascular tissues, namely the xylem which contains the water and phloem which contains the food. So those are not present in these group, these bryophytes. And some of the plants, they show these vascular tissues, namely xylem and phloem. So they were present in those plants. So those were again classified on the basis of one difference: the plants which do not produce seeds and plants which produce seeds. So the plants which have differentiated plant body and they have the vascular tissue, and having vascular tissue, they were not producing seeds. So those type of plants were grouped under the group that is Sterdophyta. See these Sterdophytes, so they were growing on the land, so little above the soil surface. So those were called ferns. So you will be learning in the later part of your lesson. So these Sterdophytes, these were not producing the seeds. See what do you mean by this? See, you think naturally plants will produce the seeds. But when you learn this Halophyta and Bryophytes, these two groups were not at all producing seeds, but they were producing certain seed-like structures called spores. So like this, so these Sterdophytes also, they were not producing seeds, but they produced some of the spores which are similar to the seeds. So with the help of those spores, they used to reproduce. So reproduction is the method where an organism continues its progeny. So any plant has to reproduce by asexual method or sexual method. See these will be reproducing with the help of asexual method, means these three groups, namely Halophyta, Bryophyte and Sterdophytes, they were showing the property where they reproduced with the help of a asexual method. So they produced the spores. So these three groups were considered as tryptogames, means they are able to reproduce but the reproductive structures are hidden. So those three groups were kept under this heading, that is cryptogames. So we learned the third group of the plant kingdom, so that is Sterdophytes, where we can see the reproductive structures as spores which were not able to produce the seeds. And slowly those plants got evolved, and those plants which were later evolved were having the property of producing the seeds. So you can see the seeds in them. So those seeds were again differentiated into two types. Naked seeds, the plants which bear the naked seeds, and the plants which bear the seeds inside the fruit wall. So these two groups, the plants which were having naked seeds are considered as Gymnosperms, and plants which were having the seeds which are enclosed in the fruit body, those were considered as Angiosperms. So these two groups were kept under a separate heading, that is Phanerogams. Phanerogams is the group of plants where you can see distinctive reproductory structure. So these two groups were most of the plants, whatever we see around us, they belong to the group Angiosperms. So these are called flower-bearing plants. So these produce the reproductory structures called flowers, whereas the Gymnosperms were not at all producing the reproductory structures like flowers. Instead of that, they produce a reproductory structure that is cones. We will study in a later part. So Angiosperms had the seeds which were covered inside the fruit wall. And you see dicots and monocots which are classified under this group. You know what are dicots? Dicotyledonous plants. Cotyledons. You find cotyledon means seed having the two leaves in that. For example, when you think about the dicots, you have the groundnut and pulses and grams. So all those have a seed. So a seed can be broken into two parts. So those are nothing but leaves or cotyledons. So the seed can be split into two cotyledons. So those were grouped under heading dicots. So examples for dicots are moong dal, groundnut, like that, half gram, like that, hundreds of examples you can be finding. So coming to the monocots, the seeds are without, they cannot be split. The seeds having only one cotyledon are called as monocots. So when you see grains of ragi, grain of jowar or wheat, so that cannot be broken and you cannot find two parts in that. When you smash it, you will get the powder. So since it is made up of only one cotyledon, so it is considered as monocots. So like this, we learned briefly about the classification of the plants coming under the plant kingdom. So we learned the first group, that is Halophyta, namely water-dwelling plants called algae, and later they evolved and transformed to form the Bryophytes, where they can live both in water and land. And you can see the Sterdophytes which were growing above the soil, which do not produce the seeds. And you learn some of the seed producing plants like Gymnosperms and Angiosperms. So the first three groups, namely Halophyta, Bryophyta and Sterdophyta, are considered as cryptogams, where reproductive structures are hidden, means they reproduce with the help of spores. Whereas here Gymnosperms and Angiosperms are considered as phanerogams, where they produce seeds. So a distinctive reproductive structure is seen here. And nowadays, whatever we see plants around us most of them belong to Angiosperms, where we are seeing the dicots and monocots. The first group coming under the kingdom Plantae includes Halophyta, which means algal forms. So here you can see the examples like Ulothrix, Cladophora, Ulva, Spirogera and Chara. Coming to the second group of plant kingdom, those are called Bryophytes, amphibians of the plant kingdom, also called by another term moss, where you find the examples like Rixia, Marcantia and Funaria. So let us learn the different groups of plants coming under the kingdom Plantae. See, 5 groups of plants have been classified. So on what basis these 5 plants groups have been classified? So they noticed certain characteristics. So on the basis of those, they classified these 5 groups. So they considered certain characteristics that plants which do not have differentiated plant body like root, leaves or stems, and plants which had them. So second point, they considered that those plants which were having the differentiated plant body, whether they had vascular tissues or not. So vascular tissues, namely xylem for the conduction of water and phloem for conduction of food. So the plants which had So the plants which produce the seeds, so again one basis was found on which the classification was made. So the plants which were having seeds were classified again into the plants which were having seeds without fruit wall and plants which were having the fruit wall. So plants which were having fruit wall with the seeds in them again classified on the basis of the presence or absence of a single cotyledon or two cotyledons. So like that, so the first group we are studying under the plant kingdom includes the group Halophyta, or it is considered as algae. So when you see a green patch of plants which are floating on the surface of the water, namely pond, rivers, so these are nothing but the Halophytes or algae. You can see the examples like Untitled, Cladophora, Vulva, Spirogyra and Chara. So when we see these algae on the surface of water, so they look very minute, they are microscopic, but you can see a giant algae, giant kelps. So those grow in the middle of the ocean for about several meters. They grow up to 60 meters. So those are called giant kelps. So what is the characteristic feature of these algae? So these have a flat plant body. So that is why the name comes Halophyta, having hallus means flat plant body. So they have got a special characteristic. So they are green in color and produce the food with the help of photosynthesis. So as they produce food, they also produce the oxygen. So when the life was born on the earth for the first time, nearly 1/4 of the oxygen in the atmosphere was produced by these algae which was grown on the surface of water. So these algae provide various benefits to the humankind. So they provide the clean air with the help of the oxygen produced into the atmosphere. So they act like a nutritious feed for the herbivores. So they are acting like food sources. So they are able to these algal extracts are used as condiments, like that various uses of algae can be learned. So coming to the second type of groups, so these are called bryophytes. So as the name any root, stem or leaf. Whereas here in Bryophytes, they are with a differentiated plant body having root or leaf-like structures, but they are not actual roots or leaves. They have got root-like structures called rhizoids. And another thing we have to notice here is they lack vascular tissues. The food-conducting tissue, namely phloem, and water-conducting tissue, namely xylem, are absent in this group, that is Bryophytes. The third group under kingdom Plantae includes Sterdophyta. Here you can see the example like Marsilia and fern. Coming to the fourth group of plants called Gymnosperms, you are seeing an example that is Pinus and Cycas. Let us learn the third type of plant. So under the heading Pteridophytes. So these pteridophytes, as you can see the examples here, Marsilia and fern. So these are popularly called term ferns. So these have got differentiated plant body. Here you can see clearly seen leaves and roots. And these pteridophytes have got specialized vascular tissues, namely xylem and phloem. So with the help of xylem, it conducts the water fluid, and the leaves produce the food. With the help of phloem, they distribute all over the plant body. Here these pteridophytes say they do not produce the seeds. So far what we have learned, the three groups, that is Halophyta, Bryophyta and Pteridophyta. So they have reproductive structures, so in the form of spores. So they have got inconspicuous reproductive structures, means they are hidden type. The reproductive structures are hidden. So those three groups are grouped under one heading, that is cryptogams. Cryptogams are the plants which have hidden reproductive structures. So far we have learned about the plants which have undifferentiated plant body, then differentiated plant body. Under that we learned Pteridophytes and Bryophytes. Here the Bryophytes do not have any specialized vascular tissue, but these Sterdophytes have specialized vascular tissue. And here you are seeing a fact that so they do not produce the seeds. Instead of that, all the plants coming under those three groups, they produce the reproductive structures called spores. So coming to another group, so here you are seeing two groups, namely Gymnosperms and Angiosperms, which produce the seeds. So here the plants produce the seeds, but here the seeds are said to be naked. So Gymnosperms are the plants which have seeds without the fruit wall. So here you can see the examples, Pinus, Cycas, and you also have Deodar. So what is the speciality? Here you cannot see any reproductive structure like flower. Instead of flower, you have cones as reproductive structures. So male cone and female cone. So they produce the seeds. So those seeds are not covered by the fruit wall. So these Gymnosperms, so they live for very long lifespan and they are of various uses. The fifth group called Angiosperms, which comes under kingdom Plantae, includes monocots which have seeds with a single cotyledon and leaves with parallel venation and root with fibrous root system. You have examples like cereals comprising ragi, jowar, wheat, paddy, etc. On the other side you have dicots. Here the seeds are having two cotyledons and the leaves with reticulate venation and root with taproot system. Here the examples are groundnut, pea, pigeon pea, horse gram, Bengal gram, etc. The fifth type of and the seeds are having single cotyledon. Here the examples of monocots are ragi, jowar, wheat, paddy. Here the cereals or food grains cannot be split into two parts. The seeds having only a cotyledon is a characteristic feature. Another feature here you can see here is that the leaves bear parallel venation. Here the parallel venation means venation, here the veins which are arranged in the leaf are parallel. You cannot find a main vein which is branched to form the secondary vein or tertiary vein. And the third character you can see here is the roots have fibrous root system. Here the main or primary root has become reduced or diminished, from which secondary and tertiary roots arises. So this makes the characteristic feature of these monocots, where the examples like cereals consisting of ragi, jowar, wheat, paddy, so all belong to monocotyledonous plants. So coming to the second type, that is dicotyledonous plants. Here the examples are the pea plant or groundnut, Bengal gram, horse gram. All these pulses and grams constitute the dicotyledonous plants. Here the seeds are covered by the fruit wall and seed have two cotyledons. Two cotyledons, so they can be split into two. Seed can be split into two. For example, in the groundnut or the horse gram or Bengal gram. And the leaves have got reticulate venation. Here the leaves, you can see the main vein being split or branched into secondary veins, and secondary veins branched again to form the tertiary veins. Apart from this feature, you can see the root having the tap root system. Here the root having the main or primary root which is branched to form the secondary root. Secondary roots again branched to form tertiary roots, and again tertiary roots you can see the root hairs. So this is about the angiosperms, where they are divided into the monocots and dicots. Here the flowers, after pollination, the pollen fertilizes with the ovule, where the flower becomes a fruit. Inside that you have the fertilized ovule as the seed, and the seed is said to be either monocot or dicot.
Let us learn 5 different groups coming under kingdom Plantae by following these slides. You can see the algal forms in the first group called Halophyta. You are seeing various algal forms which grows on the surface of water. They have no differentiated body parts, no vascular tissue, mainly found in water. They are called by the name algae. You can see some of the algal examples like Ulva, Spirogera, Ulothrix, Cladophora and Chara. Coming to the second group, the plants are called Bryophytes. So they are called amphibians of the plant kingdom. Here you can see some of the examples of Bryophytes. They have differentiated body parts like leaves, stem, but they are not distinctly or fully developed. No vascular tissues are found. They are very short plants called amphibians of the plant kingdom. They are found both on land and water. Examples you can see here are Marchantia, Rixia, Funaria and Dendroceros. The third group coming under plant kingdom includes Sterdophyta, where you are seeing examples like Marsilia, horsetails and fern. Here you find the differentiated body structure having leaves, stem and roots. Vascular tissues are present. They reproduce through spores. Examples you can see here Marsilia, horsetails and ferns. So fourth group coming under plant kingdom includes Gymnosperms. Here you are seeing examples like Pinus, Cycas, Deodar, Ginkgo. They have differentiated body parts. They have naked seeds. They don't have any fruit wall and do not bear flowers. So they are perennial, means live for longer time. They live so long as 500 years. They are said to be evergreen. So in all seasons, they will be bearing the leaves. Examples are Pinus, Cycas, Deodar, and Ginkgo. You can see clearly the difference between the angiosperms and gymnosperms. Here in the angiosperms, seeds are covered by the fruit wall, like a watermelon or an apple. Here in the gymnosperms, you can see the seeds which are naked and with no flowers. Here you are seeing some of the examples of angiosperm plants, where there is a mango, apple tree, mustard. These are characterized by having flowers. Flowers become fruit after pollination and fertilization. Seeds are not naked. It's inside the fruit. Angiosperms are again classified into dicots and monocots. Here you can see the example of peas as an example in dicots, and you are seeing rice and maize as examples in the monocots. Thus, we learnt about the 5 different groups coming under the kingdom Plantae.